don't know if you're like me, but I feel like there are times that God is speaking to me that I really should pay attention a little bit more, and that happened this week. So I want to tell you a little bit more about that. Let me tell you about what I have apparently discovered is a flaw that I really would like to work on within myself. So as we were preparing for this week's podcast, I was drawn to Proverbs 27, verse 23, and I thought, well, I'm going to read the whole thing of Proverbs 27 and just see what all that's about. The first 2 or 3 verses just spoke to me and thought, Ashley, you really need to work on humbling yourself, at least in certain areas. Some areas I'm super humble, but when it comes to cooking, I usually have a pretty good leap of confidence as I walk into it. And last weekend, as we were preparing for our life group, I was cooking up a couple of recipes on Saturday night, getting ready for Sunday since we were going to be busy all day. I thought these are things I can prepare ahead. And both recipes just absolutely flopped, or at least they started out that way. Baking is usually an area that I'm pretty solid in, which is why I usually go into it with quite a bit of confidence. I have a pretty good grasp of, mentally walking through a recipe and visualizing in my brain how it's going to turn out and the different steps. And the first one was some chocolate meringue cookies. I've never done chocolate meringue cookies before. I've done peppermint meringues before, and those turned out fantastic every single time I've made them. So again, walked in with confidence, had great peaks as I mixed up the egg whites and sugar mixture. And as soon as I added the chocolate in, it turned soupy. And that's not what you want. And so to the old Google machine I went to try and figure out how to salvage this. And, suggestions seemed to be leaning towards just going ahead and baking it as one big thing. So I did. So it was just like, a bar situation. I cut them up into little squares. They tasted great. The dark chocolate was a fantastic accompaniment to the sweet of the egg and sugar mixture. And everyone apparently loved them, or they were super gracious and were nice about it. And then the second recipe I made was I was going to make lemon poppy seed bars. So like lemon bars, except with poppy seed. I had poppy seeds I needed to use. And so I thought this would be really kind of cool. And because we were doing a Passover Seder meal, I thought I want to kind of take out the grain aspect of this because of, the fermentation of the grains. I didn't want to take that chance. I realize that's not something that's like hardcore for our group or anything like that, but I wanted to try and do what I could to kind of keep this more along those lines. So I decided I was going to use almond flour. I have never used almond flour before. I thought I had done enough research on that to be able to figure it out, and turns out I had not. Almond flour, in case you didn't know, does not react anywhere close to the same way as regular all-purpose flour would, or bread flour, or any flour made with regular wheat. It looked like, I don't know if you've ever looked at a dry lake bed and how it gets all crackly and then there's the gaps between the pieces. It kind of looked like that, except with rivers of melted butter flowing through it, and it was disgusting looking, and it did not set up. And so back to the old Google machine I went after pitching that mess. What I ended up doing was putting it in a small casserole and baked it in a water bath. Never done a water bath before. So that in itself was an experience. And so what I ended up learning from that was that I should maybe go in with just a little bit more of a humble take on things. So Proverbs 27 verse 1 and 2. So do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Let someone else praise you, and not your own mouth, an outsider and not your own lips. So it just kind of, as I said, as I was preparing for this week's podcast with Matt, it just made me want to step back and think, perhaps God was speaking to me in more ways than I realized when we decided to take this on. So if you're like me and you decide that there's an area of your life you're just super confident in, though the confidence is good to have, perhaps even if you're mentally boasting about things, take a step back and evaluate that situation. And just kind of think, is this what God wants me to do? Do I need to have this overconfidence that has become boastful? So yeah, take a look at that. I hope you take this in as you take your walk with God, and just absolutely think of, as you go through, how is God teaching me? How is God speaking to me? What does God want me to do? So it's something I'm still working on, something I'm still learning, and I hope it's something that you take on as well.